love a good margarita? Don't you just love a good margarita? How's it going, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. As you can see, I have my favorite adult beverage with me, a margarita. That's because it is Margarita Monday, my favorite day of the week. And this week, on our Margarita Monday Meetup podcast, Seaman has got a conversation to finish with his YouTube buddy, the Greek Geek. Last week was a lot of fun. We started by talking about Extraction, Chris Hemsworth's latest action flick on Netflix, and that led us into who are our top 10 action heroes of all time. Last week we got through 10 through 6. I thought I was at the end of my 6th when we had a slight interjection that led to a small tangent that the Greek Geek brought up himself, which, is why I wanted to kind of tease you with that. Ooh, that's what we're going to start with. But it was actually at the beginning of my 6th. So we'll finish up my 6th, and then we'll do our top 5. So why don't you pull up a chair, man, take a seat, as we get ready for this week's Margarita Monday Meetup with my buddy, YouTuber, the Greek Geek, Paul Katsalos, as we talk our top 5 action heroes of all time. But first, we talk the Snyder Cut for a little bit. Ooh, I'm so excited. I know you've been waiting a week for it, so let's not waste any more time. Take it away past the Greek Geek and Seaman.
Snyder Cut.
Yeah, dude.
It's coming.
Dude, I cannot wait. Give me Darkseid now. Oh my god, dude. 4+ hours of Justice League. It makes me think that they're gonna let him do the 2 movies that he originally wanted to do as one consolidated film, or it might be what I've heard mostly is I think it's gonna be 35-minute episodes.
I heard that
The
too.
Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Which would be good for HBO Max, but dude, I can't. If there was a way you were going to derail me tonight, that was the way.
I did it.
I cannot wait for the Snyder Cut. I'm so happy for him. Because when you know everything that went into why he walked away from Justice League, it just feels wrong that his vision wasn't what the goal was. So the fact that he gets to do it, I think it's just great for him. I think it's great for the franchise. I think it's a tricky play for DC because there's a part of me that goes, this thing pops the way I think it could pop. People will be like, well, let's get fucking Ben Affleck back in the suit and let's do all these things. It's you don't want to undercut what's going on with Robert Pattinson. And in the world they've created, you could still bring Ben back as older Batman. It could work, but they're not going to go.
Well, you've got different dimensions.
Yeah, you could have
realities with the superhero stuff. So you can do it. You just got to write it in.
Totally a way to do it. So it's an interesting thing to play with, but I'm just excited because I think the world deserves to see his vision. And when you had all the things that he was hinting at that was going to lead to Darkseid, to not get to Darkseid as a DC fan, it was
exactly. It's very disappointing,
on, man. That's why I was here with all this darkness. We're going to the darkest of all the dark places. So that's super exciting. And then the other thing I think that's exciting about that is if it works, we could see the air cut of Suicide Squad, which...
That would be great too.
I want to see that 30 plus minutes of Jared Leto that just has disappeared into the ether. I want to know what that movie looked like because every time I watch it, it feels like the middle of the movie was butchered. It was we had all this stuff going on and we just chopped it all out and dissected. It's it just feels like there's a whole big chunk of it missing.
Oh yeah, that's why it feels so disjointed.
So
watch all of the tweets now. Release the air cut.
Oh, it's already starting, and it's look, I'm gonna say this. I'm with you guys. I want to see it, but also pump the brakes. We still got at least probably a year before we get to the Snyder Cut, and the Snyder Cut has to work before the air cut can happen. So
and just because they're releasing it doesn't mean it's going to be great. It might be terrible. I want to see it regardless.
True.
But,
you just don't want to abuse the power of social media. I don't think DC was super happy with 3 years of tweeting about release the Snyder Cut.
It was just so everyone would shut up.
So yes, the situation kind of got to a place where it made perfect sense for them to do it, but I don't think they were enthused about the attacking of just constant putting it out there. So don't rush to the air cut, but I like the idea that could be a thing.
Yeah, if the Snyder Cut turns out to be really popular and it does really well, I reckon that it would definitely open up a lot of doors for a lot of other different cuts that we never got to see.
Oh, for sure. And it's and like you can understand why Warner Brothers was so hesitant to go near this, because it's like opening up Pandora's box, man. Like, now all of a sudden it's like anybody who was wrong, they're gonna be like, well, let's see my cut of what the movie should have looked like. I feel like at some point we'll get we want to see the Josh Trank cut of Fantastic Four. I'll tell you this right now, never gonna happen. Kevin Feige ain't gonna let shit like that go. But like, that's the door that you could open to this. But considering what happened to Zack Snyder, I am just so happy for him that he gets to show the world what he was trying to accomplish, because there's a very, very clear arc and style and feeling to the movies he was making, and Justice League didn't sniff that at all.
No.
All right, well, thank you for derailing the conversation.
We went on a bit of a tangent there.
But it was the best tangent, because I love talking about the Snyder Cut. It gets me so excited. But number 6 on my list, like I said, was Neo. And just briefly, I mean, like I said, the visual things, like the reason for slow motion to be used in a way that makes sense, because
the bullet time.
That's the bullet time, and that's what it's looking like to him. So, like, you know, and the 360 camera decisions, like so many iconic visual things that happen in that movie. But at the heart of all of that is Neo, and the character is awesome. Like, I like what he stands for. I like the journey that he goes on specifically in that first movie. And then that transition to like going from like novice to greatest to like when you get to the second one, it's like, oh, he can do anything.
Anything. Which is also a problem, because then it's just like, well, he can do anything. So what kind of threat could we possibly throw at him? Nothing, apparently. Well, except some guys with swords that damage his hand.
Yeah.
And ghost twins. Damn, that movie's really weird.
It is really weird. Like, the franchise got to a place that it leaves you scratching your head a bunch of times. But it's the birth of Keanu Reeves, the action star. Like, The Matrix is where he went, oh man, like, I've taken karate and martial arts. Now I'm going to learn all these other things so that I can do this stuff in this movie.
Yeah, it ignited his passion for that, and he kept going with that. Which
without Neo, there is no John Wick.
Yeah, exactly. And never would have happened.
God, the world would suck if there was no John Wick, because I adore Keanu Reeves in general as an actor. I love his movies. Point Break is one of my all-time favorites. But like, from the action standpoint, like, he has easily become one of the greatest action actors around, especially, you know, for this current generation of action movies. And it all starts with Neo, and just from the choreography to, you know, the action sequences that he has in those movies. Again, like I said, iconic imagery, stuff you'd never seen before, and so believable in this completely fantastical, unbelievable world, because it's Keanu on screen most of the time. You know, there's a good amount where you can tell there are stunt doubles swapped in those movies, because it's early days Keanu, but the commitment that he had to get into the action and learning, you know, and doing the martial arts and learning more things.
Months on end of training.
It pays off so well in that movie, and I adore Neo. Yeah. That first Matrix, it's like, again, it's one of those movies where, like, you remember where you were when you saw that in the movie theater, and like, your head just went,
ugh. Like, there's so many movies that I wish I could just watch again for the first time.
Dude, seriously.
So many. This is definitely one of them.
Oh, without a doubt. And it's like, the thing I hate the most about the coronavirus right now, when it comes to movie stuff. Like, in real world, lots of things I hate about the coronavirus. But in the world of affecting movies, it knocked off, at least for right now, the possibility of being able to see John Wick 4 and then Matrix 4, or vice versa, because they were going to drop on the same day. I hope that the studios like talk to each other and go, when we get the new date, let's make the new date the same day. Because the idea of a Keanu Reeves movie night, I was so excited about. Like, wait, you mean I could go watch The Matrix 4, be so jacked about that, and then go watch John Wick 4 right after? Like, yes, please take all of my money.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to happen now. I don't think.
No, probably not.
Try and release it so it's in direct competition with each other.
Yeah.
Even though they would have the same drawing power, I think, because especially with Keanu Reeves starring in both.
Well, you'd think just everybody, like I said, everyone, I envision a world where, like, if it would have happened the way it was supposed to, you go into that first movie, and most of the people that are in that movie are probably walking over to the other movie theater, and you're walking right past the people who are coming from John Wick 4 or Matrix to the other side. You're just like, high fives, Keanu Reeves all over the place. I wanted to see what the box office was going to do, because Keanu, like, everybody loves Keanu, and those, like, that got to be the two most anticipated action movies coming out for the next year or two. Is like
definitely
Matrix 4, because I don't think you bring the Matrix back unless you have a script that's so on point like the first one, and I'd have to imagine the Wachowskis are cooking up something crazy that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And then just give me anything that Chad Stahelski and Keanu want to do with John Wick 4. Personally, I hope he gets to wield a baseball bat, because after seeing Stahelski choreograph Margot Robbie with a baseball bat, I was like, I want to see Keanu Reeves fuck people up with a baseball bat now.
I was so blown away, Birds of Prey, like with that fight scene in the police
so
precinct or whatever, just like with the way it was, and just like, wait a minute, this is all very familiar.
Yeah, like
in a superhero movie.
Yeah,
and it's just like
that, and that just gets me excited, because it's like, well, now that he's come over and he's helped with this one, maybe DC's getting their hooks into Chad, being like, come over and direct some movies for us.
Yeah.
That could be that secret ingredient that some of the DC films are missing, or some of that power that's like, oh man, like, I'm so here for that.
I just want to see that kind of cinematography shots with that kind of choreography, but people with superpowers.
Yes.
Choreographing and having that kind of stuff with Superman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, any superhero, like superpowered, like Margot Robbie, fantastic.
Oh yeah,
did very well as Harley Quinn fighting, but it's still just regular people fighting regular people, not anyone. Even in Birds of Prey, who had superpowers.
Black Canary.
Black Canary. She used it.
She's the only meta, really.
Once and a half.
Exactly.
And that was it. But
yeah, no, the idea of like a superhero movie getting that type of choreography, like, oh, it just gets me excited. Like, I would love to find out that, like, when they do the actual real Birds of Prey movie, like Chad Stahelski's directing that movie, I'd be like, fuck yes, let's go.
Yeah.
I personally would have loved if, like, Stahelski was doing the Shang-Chi movie, but I understand why you don't go that direction. I'm just excited for, like, that type of martial arts type stuff to start dropping into these movies.
Who's doing Shang-Chi? I look it up.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi, a Marvel.
Destin Daniel Cretton, who has... Oh, where are we? Nope.
That's a hell of a name.
It is. I'm interested to see. I'm not familiar with him by name, so I'm interested to see what's on his IMDb. Bear with us, folks. Sometimes you want to learn things.
I'm just looking. I'm just really curious.
Oh, but he did just.
He's got anything that
nothing action oriented, but he did Just Mercy, which was a really good movie.
Right.
So, I mean, he can at least direct. Like, he can handle a movie.
Yes.
I'll be interested to see what he does from an action standpoint. But
it's going to be a martial arts kind of focused
for sure.
action movie, so hopefully it's good.
I hope so. I would have to imagine that Kevin Feige's not going to let Shang-Chi be anything but the most amazing martial arts superhero movie you could get. But I love the concept, like we were saying, that you could start bringing in people like Chad Stahelski or people that are focusing on that type of action in these superhero movies with people who have superpowers. Like we were saying, Extraction is almost like that. Like, it feels like he's got the power of Thor when he's punching people, but you're getting that kind of choreography. I want to see that where, like, the other guy that's hitting back is hitting as hard. Like, give me like Black Adam and Shazam fighting like that. I'd take my money right now. All right.
Exactly, too.
We have gotten through the bottom 5 of our lists, so it's time for the top 5. I'll start, being that we've already talked about mine. My number 5 was Beatrix Kiddo, a.k.a. the bride from Kill Bill, which, of course, is Uma Thurman. Love her. Paul, who do you have at 5?
At number 5, I have Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley from the Alien series. Easily one of the most iconic action characters of all time, and like Sarah Connor as well, didn't start off like that at all. Started off as just a regular crew member on the Nostromo, and by the second movie becomes a pretty much action star. By the end of the first movie, trying to escape from one alien, barely surviving that. End of the second movie, taking on an alien queen with a power loader, saying, "Get away from her, you bitch."
And again, those iconic lines.
Yeah, exactly.
Plenty
very important to me.
Ripley. Yes, they are. Oh man, that brilliant choice. Again, someone else who was originally early on in the top 10 for me, and then slowly got whittled away. But like you said, one of the most iconic female action heroes, and just action heroes in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fantastic. Gets a bit weird towards it, like by the fourth one, Resurrection, where she's a clone, but she has alien DNA and she has like super strength and acid blood. That a bit ridiculous, and is really good at shooting hoops as well. She can throw the basketball over her shoulder and lands it in. That's right. Apparently, they had to do so many takes for that, and they were eventually going to give it up. And then on the last one, she just gets it and just like. Yeah.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, she is a fantastic action character. Alien 2 is a fantastic action movie as well. Like it shows that you can have like a survival horror movie for the first, and then do a completely different genre for the second one. Still with those horror elements, but having essentially an action movie with space marines fighting aliens, and she's caught in the middle of it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, she's such a badass, and like you said, very much like Sarah Connor, kind of thrown into the situation in the first movie, and by the time you get to the second, she is a pro at killing aliens.
Yeah, has to change and adapt to the situation. It's fantastic. Yeah. I'm talking about these now. I just really want to watch all these movies now.
Right? Dude, that was like my biggest thing. I was like, I almost, there was a part of me that was like, maybe I should push this off for like a week or two, because now I want to start watching all these.
I was thinking that too. I'm like, because I feel like there's a couple of these I haven't seen in a
long
years.
time. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm just like, am I remembering this correctly? Is the action as good as I remember?
That's the thing that's so great about these things, is like, once you start talking about it, it's like, oh yeah, I do remember all these things about these movies.
And if it's left this much of an impact on us to remember it, even after not watching it for a few years, then it's great. It's good.
Absolutely.
If it leaves that big of an impression on you.
100%. Could not agree with you more, sir. Excellent. So, we got your 5. I gave my 5 before. We move on to number 4. I'll go first again here. Now, while we talked about how some of the, especially now when we look back at it, some of the camera work is like a little too tight quarters. Jason Bourne, and now you're gonna start to see the trend in who my top 4 are. A lot of hand-to-hand combat type people. What Jason Bourne does from a character standpoint, one, he's just fascinating, because he doesn't know anything about himself when we meet him.
Yeah.
And going on that entire journey of figuring out who he is while he's figuring out, I love all that stuff. But the action in these movies, like the hand-to-hand stuff is great. And like I said, like the way it's approached, it's very real in a sense. Like it lets you feel the chaoticness of that situation in real life. Like if you were Jason Bourne, this is how fast everything's moving and things are happening and you're having to react. Yeah, I would have liked you to come out just a little bit so we could see that choreography that looks like it's so good despite some of the kind of choppiness and some of the editing. But besides the hand-to-hand stuff and the fact that he can kill you with just about anything he can get his hands on, the other thing that is big with the Jason Bourne movies is car chases and destroying the car that is the main car in the car chase. Yeah. They beat the shit out of their cars, but those chase sequences, like you anytime a Bourne movie where Matt Damon is playing Jason Bourne is on anywhere, you're like, I'm here for 2 things. I'm here to watch him kick ass, figure more things out about himself or whatever's going on, and then some really badass chase sequences. Yeah. And that combination of the two, for me, makes him one of the best action, characters of all time. Like I said, the character is fascinating, and the action that he delivers in those movies, I mean, Damon's fantastic in them. And I live for a good car chase scene. I mean, I will go back and rewatch The Italian Job sometimes because the chase sequences are so good in that movie. And that's one of the things I love about the Bourne movies. I love the combination of the hand-to-hand, visceral kind of real-world action, and then those car chases just do it for me. So for me, I bring Mr. Jason Bourne in at number 4.
It's tough with the hand-to-hand fighting because sometimes, like, you know how we're talking about how we want more of a clearer shot and more of an idea of what's happening. But then at the same time, with this one, it fits because it wants to really get that frantic nature of the hand-to-hand. It's very fast. It's very, very quick. You don't have time to plan things out. You just got to react and just do things quickly, which I think works for the movie. And whenever I see this kind of editing in an action movie, I've got to try and think, are they trying to get that across? Yeah. Or is it just
we're cutting around?
Edited? And you just got to constantly think about that. And just, the action scenes, the chase scenes, running away from the authorities and all that. That's one thing that sticks in my memory of just being super uncomfortable is I think it's the first movie where he's fighting that guy that breaks into his apartment or whatever, and he grabs a pen and like he stabs him like through the hand
and he pulls it out. Oh yeah!
Oh my god, that makes me so uncomfortable. I haven't seen that since in a movie. Like it's a very particular spot, but it just makes me so uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, it happens and you're like, oh fuck, and then they cut back and you see it hanging in his hand and he just like,
you're like, god,
come on, dude,
so uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, but no, like, and that was the other thing too that I love about Bourne is like the inventive nature of how he can just grab whatever is at his disposal to dismember or disarm or kill whoever it is he's fighting, no matter what they have in their hand. Like super resourceful. And just reaction time is top notch for Mr. Jason Bourne. All right, so where are we going for 4 for you?
So I have got Tang Lung, who is Bruce Lee from The Way of the Dragon. So I could have picked Bruce Lee from any of his movies.
It's fair.
Really? But this is the one that stuck out to me the most, just like with a different kind of setting. Like it takes place in Rome, in Italy, so a different kind of setting for like a Chinese Hong Kong kind of cinema kind of movie. Well, shot like that. It's not. Yeah. Like, you can't really call it a Chinese movie if it's shot in Hong Kong. Wait, yes, you can. All right, let's not get into that. But it's just so memorable to me. It's just even with BruceLee fighting fucking Chuck Norris in the Coliseum, which is just a brilliant concept just within itself.
100%.
In Chuck Norris's incredibly hairy back in all of its gloriness. It's just so fantastic. It's just, and Bruce Lee's movies, just how iconic they are in bringing martial arts to like Western film and inspiring so many people to take up martial arts, myself included. It's just amazing. I enjoyed the fight choreography so much. Bruce Lee has a different way of doing his action in his movies. It feels a lot more brutal compared to a lot of other martial arts movies at the time, where they feel like very overly choreographed, particularly in the 70s, just in the way of their movements, and there's delays kind of between their movements. In this one, it feels a lot more kind of real, and just like when Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee are sizing each other up, they're like just quickly warming up. They stop. They respect each other as martial artists. It's just a fantastic movie. I love it.
This is where one of these things where like I put all these stipulations into my top 10 to protect myself, and one of the things for me is like I need repetition from a character to kind of be here. If we were doing a top 10 action like actors, Bruce Lee would be up amongst the top on any list, because you don't get to any of the action, specifically martial arts action, that we have today without Bruce Lee. And I would love to see Bruce Lee do what's going on now in action, like, because he'd be able to hang with all these guys, man. Like,
exactly.
And Keanu would have done something with him, and I would be like, yes, Keanu and Bruce Lee, this is everything I want right now,
But unfortunately, he did pass.
Yes, unfortunately,
very early on.
No, I mean,
like that way we didn't really see like if there was going to be a decline in his career, like you know how sometimes actors they hit their high point and then there's a decline. So it was just all high from him.
Oh yeah.
And then
I mean, it's one of the best and most iconic. And when you talk about like the respect parts in like some of his movies where like they're fighting, it's like, okay, we're going to warm up or we're going to kind of like toe off. Something else that you see incorporated in a lot of martial arts movies now. Like I just recently rewatched the Raid movies and like there's literally a sequence where it's like Iko Uwe and the guy he's going up against, they like set up on each other like multiple times because they respect the fight. It's like, look, I know you're trying to kill me and I'm trying to kill you, but you got to have like respect to the fight when it's happening. And like that stuff, like I said, most of the stuff that we get in action movies now comes from what Bruce Lee, you know, did from a martial arts standpoint back in the day. And I mean, it's the greatest martial artist of all time. So yes, really. if this was an actor list, you know, or you know, like action stars, Bruce Lee would be on my top. I couldn't pick one character from him to throw into the top 10, but like you said, really, any of them can land in here.
I just wanted to include him in this list because he's just such an iconic one for me.
You're but really, I think he's smarter than me, Paul.
I doubt that. But really, I think his like the characters he plays in the different movies that he's in, they're kind of interchangeable. Like I don't think there's that much difference between the characters he plays. I think he more or less just kind of like plays himself in these movies, as opposed to these deep characters that are very different from movie to movie.
That's very
true. It's probably just the same movie in five different movies.
Maybe all of the Bruce Lee movies are a universe that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
It's the same guy with a different alias in every movie.
Pretty much. But I wanted to include him on my list. That's why he's here.
Well, like I said, you are a smart man, sir. And you got to respect the Bruce Lee. Any of his characters coming in at 4 there. Okay, so now into the good stuff, man. The top 3.
Here we go.
This is where you're really gonna understand where I'm coming from with like this new age stuff. But Rama from the Raid for me is number 3. Those two movies, just as much as the John Wick movies, I think have everything to do with how we approach specifically martial arts type work and hand-to-hand combat, but like these types of action movies that we have now. And it's a lot of stuff that we said earlier where it comes to when you're watching these Western, you know, martial arts movies, a lot of the time it's, hey, we want you to appreciate how difficult the choreography is, how crazy the choreography is. And what Iko Uwe does as Rama in these movies, like you just sit there and you're like, geez, man, like the footwork is mind-blowing in these films. Like the way he can like grab a guy's head with his foot and like bounce it off the ground and kick it into another person. You just sit there and you're like, oh, and again, because they set the camera back, even if the camera is moving angles and they're cutting to make it look cinematic, it's always far enough away where it's like, okay, I'm supposed to be focusing on their hands. I'm not missing any movements. Oh, now they're doing feet. They're moved out. I can see what they're doing with their feet.
Yeah.
And from 1 to 2, the action just big jumps, man.
Yeah.
Like, I think I like the first one more because it's self-contained to that one building. You know, the raid basically is like this apartment building that's run by a drug lord. This group of police are going in there to raid it, which is why it's raid. There's some under the table type stuff going on where there's dirty cops involved and there's different reasons for why they're there. But Iko Uwe's character, Rama, is kind of the guy who's got to get, and it's basically just going floor by floor, just kicking the shit out of all the people he runs into. And I like that story because it's tighter than the first one. The first one definitely spreads out more, kind of builds out a much larger universe. Is like, you know, it's not taking place on one day. You know, it's multiple days, and there's drug cartels and all sorts of stuff going on. But the action in the second one, like exhausting, but in the best way. Like sometimes you'll see an action sequence go on for too long and you're like, I'm exhausted and tired after seeing that. These, they're like exhaustive because like, again, the fatigue factor, like you're watching these guys get exhausted in what they're doing. You're like, shit, dude, like I would die if I was doing all the stuff that they're doing, but it's so good. It just like gets you so jacked. And like I said, some of my favorite movies now, big influence comes from those Raid movies, and the Rama character is an easy one to like. You know, again, a relatable character, something that I think is apparent through my entire list outside of the Terminator. you can relate to almost all of these characters. And then when you put in the skill set, I mean, some of the best martial arts stuff you'll see from anything currently is coming from this kid, Iko Uwe. Like he's got a show on Netflix called Wu Assassins.
Assassins. I've seen it and reviewed it.
It's fantastic because the action is great. Like the story is out there, but it totally fits, I think, what it's trying to accomplish from that type of Chinese cinema. Lore and all that stuff. But anytime they're doing action, you're just like, yeah. And I continually sit here and go, how did we have a movie where Mark Wahlberg was like great and like all the stuff coming from Mark Wahlberg was awesome in an action movie with this kid, and all the action scenes with Iko Uwe are not good because they're cut around him like he's bad at martial arts, and he's one of the best in the world. So really knowing how I am with hand-to-hand combat and how that kind of gets me going and is the type of action I look for the most, what they've done, like I said, Bruce Lee, one of the greatest of all time. I would have loved to have seen him doing stuff that they're doing today. And obviously he's the influence to get you to where you are, but you won't see anything like what you see in some of these more current action movies. And the martial arts skill sets in these raid movies in particular, you just sit there and go, I don't even know how you'd think to do that. I mean, he kills a dude by busting through a door, then coming back out, grabbing the guy, jumping, and like head into the it's so good. It does everything I want in an action movie to do.
It just makes me think, like, how do they think of that? Like, how do they think of like to choreograph it? Where do they think to do that kind of choreography?
No idea.
I don't know. I'm just like, fuck, that's
like good job. And especially like in the last week, like trying to do a little prep work for this stuff. Like I've just been watching so many different clips of action movies, and I go, I don't even understand how the thought process comes to figuring out that choreography and then how they apply it. And like, it's mind-blowing stuff. So when the choreography is working at a top-notch level, that's how you're getting into the top number on my list. And Rama from The Raid goes to number 3 for me.
It's so violent too. It's great.
Oh yeah.
So much
violent.
blood.
Love
that
it.
chick with the hammers.
Oh, dude!
I couldn't imagine getting hit with a fucking hammer.
Dude, when she clears that subway car, I'm just Oh, it's and like even her brother, cousin. I feel like there's some sort of relation. Sure. But the dude with the bat, like I just love the fact that he's walking around hoodie, just dragging the bat, and then he's like, "I'm not gonna hit you with my bat all the time. I'm gonna hit you with a baseball, and then I'm gonna ask you to pick the baseball up and throw it to me. And if you don't, well then it's over."
Yeah.
Such an interesting character. So much fun with the action in those movies. So big fan of The Raid. But now, save us again, Paul. Bring us back to something that people are like, give me a name I recognize. Who you got at number 3?
Well, this one definitely recognized. I feel that because of what we're talking about, it was inevitably going to come to this, and it's John Wick. That's number 3, Keanu Reeves.
You've hit my number 1.
No, damn it! I ruined it for you.
It's okay. I think the way I've talked about John Wick throughout the course of this conversation, most people probably could have figured that's where I would go with number 1.
Yeah. I feel disappointed because I didn't watch it at the cinema when it first came out. I don't remember the reason why, but I missed it for some reason. And I remember just them watching it later on. Just like, this is amazing, and I could really understand why people were going on about it. Like we've been going so much comparing the choreography to this movie.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really do anything different to what other movies have done, but it's just done it so well. Yeah. And that's the reason why I think a lot of people comparing a lot of action movies to this one, because this one set the standard of what they could be. It's just so well choreographed with the gunfighting, just the preciseness of how he shoots someone, shooting them through the kneecap, and then they drop to the ground, just bam, through the head, shooting through walls. He anticipates what other people are going to do, and the way that people talk about him in just awe, like calling him the boogeyman. What was it called in Russian? They called it
Baba Yaga.
Baba Yaga, that's it, in Russian, and just how saying like he is a man of indomitable will, and he'll stop at nothing to accomplish his goals, and he wanted to try and get out of this life, and just because some assholes decide to kill his dog, just sends him on a roller coaster, just to kill fucking Theon from Game of Thrones.
Yes, that dick steals
Alfie Allen
dog. Well, and like the reason for me, John Wick is number one. Is one, like you said, he set the bar for what modern action is. Modern action movies from here on out will have a look and a feel to them that in some way is emulating or trying to do something similar to what John Wick did. Because it was one of those like movies, much like The Matrix when it came out. Like it came out and everybody was talking like, "Oh my God, did you see? I didn't know you could do that in an action."
Yeah.
And like whether it's just, and I think, even though I think it's David Leitch or Leachman.
That sounds right.
Something.
I think David Leitch sounds right.
Yes, it's close to that. But the guy who was technically the director of John Wick, like the first one, the thing you love the most is that he brought Stahelski into those movies. He is uncredited, but he was the co-director on one, and then Stahelski took them from there. And I think having that symbiotic nature that he has with Keanu, working with him for the amount of years that he's working, whether it was choreographing stuff or being his actual stunt double, there's a symbiotic relationship to what they do where those two guys are always on the same page. And I think when your director and your actor are on the same page, you can pull off these crazy choreographed sequences because they're thinking the same way.
I saw a tweet not too long ago, and it was talking about like John Wick, like the movie title wasn't originally John Wick.
I just saw this also.
Yeah, it just like Keanu just kept referring to it as John Wick, and then that just became the name.
Yeah,
I can't remember what the other name was.
No, it was
John Wick is a lot better.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's it was like Scourge or something like that.
Scourge sounds right.
That might be wrong because I was watching Ragnarok just recently. But it's something like Scourge, where it's like
I love Carl Urban.
Carl Urban's a legend.
I like
it to nerds.
Behold,
you can't
my
be
stuff.
You can't if you proclaim to be a geek in any sentence and you don't like Carl Urban, you're not a real geek. Like, he's so good. I love him.
So many. Like he's in Lord of the Rings. He plays Judge Dredd in Dredd.
The best Judge Dredd.
I haven't even seen Sylvester Stallone version.
Yeah, you don't.
But I have not heard good things.
No, I mean, at least Carl Urban doesn't take the helmet off, thank God.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, The Boys, like anything he pops up in.
Season 2 comes out this year, doesn't it?
I would assume or hope that it does.
Hope so.
I don't know anything now with like the way schedules got screwed up.
Yeah.
That show's so good.
I'm so excited for that.
Oh man. But before we go on another, we're doing another. And don't worry, Paul. This happens all the time on this show. Tangents are always welcome. But I do want to not lose track of what I was going with John Wick. But the thing, for me, like the choreography, like that symbiotic nature from the actor and the director, just knowing each other so well, I think elevates all of those things. I think it lets them take risks. They like to try things differently. Like they're always looking to up the game some way, whether it's like John killed a guy with a pencil in this movie and then he killed a guy with a book in this movie, or if it's just something bigger, like John's on a horse fighting guys on motorcycles. Like, the other thing too with them is like each movie, I think John Wick is the best, but you could argue from an action standpoint, each movie is an elevation from the movie before it. Like they're always looking to up their game. They're always up to up their game. Yeah. And then at the heart of the character, the reason why John is number one for me is he's the most relatable of all the characters.
Yeah.
Like you set up, and the thing I love about those movies is you set up all your story right at the beginning of the first one. And then after that, it's nothing but let's add elements to build the world. And then just action. You don't need to have a plot line other than like the only reason John's in this situation is because some dude killed his dog. And relate to that, because if somebody killed my dog, I would and go hunt them down too. And what's crazy is I think I might have been reading it in the same article in reference to the title, Becoming John Wick, and like now everyone's like, thank God Keanu only ever referred to the movie as John Wick.
Yeah, but it definitely wouldn't have had the same ring to it.
originally the studio wanted them to take out the killing of the dog. They thought it was too violent and like might rub audiences the wrong way. And I sit there and go, thank God, like Leach and Stahelski stuck to their guns on that, because that's the whole franchise.
That's what. But the killing of the dog is what because people just love dogs so much. Like we see people dying on screen so much, but the death of a dog
pisses people
really
off.
Makes you go, like, for example,
go get them.
In the movie Starship Troopers, like when the asteroids hits Buenos Aires, and like you see the shots of dead people, whatever, everyone's like, eh. And then like I remember seeing the shot of the dead dog, and I'm like,
oh no, you
fucking
can't do
kill
that.
Those bugs, man.
Yeah, right, exactly. And like
kill dogs.
That's that thing that immediately is so relatable, because I'd imagine more than 90% of people in the world have had some sort of a positive experience, I would hope, with a dog. And like they're just the best animals. But like add into it that like John got out of the game so that he could be with his wife, who was dying from cancer. Cancer kills his wife, and the next day a dog she bought in the instance that she was going to die arrives on the doorstep as her last gift to John, so he won't be alone. Yeah, like you throw that on top of it, you're just like, go kill kill them all.
Yeah, exactly. There's more to it than he killed. They killed his dog. They killed his last memory, his
connection
last,
to his wife.
Connection to his dead wife. And I remember people complaining about, he's just going on revenge for his dog. How lame's that?
It's like, dude, like that's the last thing that his woman did for him before she died, because she knew, like, it's just so perfect. And that's all you need for a story, for him to just continue on that road from that point on, because from that point forward, everything that happens is just another domino that was knocked over because of that one decision. And I love where they take the character. I love how the character has grown, like in the sense like, like you go from the first movie going after these guys. Second movie, guy shows up and is like forced him to do something he doesn't really want to do. And the guy's a total dick, so he kills him on continental premises. So now when you get to the third movie, it's like every single assassin known to mankind is coming after John. And you're just like, yes. I didn't think we were going to get a fourth movie. And now we have a fourth movie. I'm like, just keep making them, man. And like, again, one of the first movies I recognized like the fatigue factor. Like he would be exhausted after a fight, or he gets hit by a car and then proceeds to limp for 2 movies, because those 2 movies take place in relatively, short proximity to each other. Like
it makes it feel consistent and, well, I guess realistic, even though it's not really realistic. But when you get injured, you're injured. You're gonna limp. You're gonna be bleeding. You're not gonna be able to do the stuff. But that's where I think his like sheer will comes into factor, because he just like kind of gets past all that and just keeps pushing on.
It's funny. This franchise, and specifically John Wick, is so good that telegraphing the end bit that I didn't like when we were talking about Extraction. Don't they do that in JW? Like doesn't the movie start with the car slowly crashing into like the wall and him kind of slipping out of it? I feel like maybe I'm wrong.
I saw it not too long ago too.
I feel like the movie ends with like it's raining and the black car just kind of rolls into like a little wall in like a warehouse area, and he falls out of the car, and you can tell that he got fucked up, but you don't know what happened. And then I think the movie goes in. I could be wrong, and if I am, I apologize. But again, like it's taking something that, if it did happen, something that I don't typically like, but doing it in a way where it's like, all right, now, like it was more like I'm interested to figure out how he got to this place and then what happens.
Yeah. So really, Extraction in a way was trying to replicate that a lot.
Yeah, I get, now that I say it out loud, like, I guess that's what was going on. And no wonder you're drawing all those comparisons to John Wick, because I think that movie was trying to do a lot of John Wick type things. And again, that's another reason why JW for me is number one, because the influence that he has had on modern action and the way people approach action films now very much has been influenced by him. So for me, John Wick, J-Dubs, he's number one. But I respect the number 3, especially knowing when your number 1 is Terminator. We've killed both of our number 1s.
Yeah,
which so I guess is supposed to be expected. So yeah, John Wick number 1 for me, Terminator number 1 for you. That just leaves the number 2 spot left for us. Where did you go for number 2?
Okay, so for number 2, I have Shrek. No, not really.
I'm interested now.
Sorry, no. My friend at work, I told him that I was doing this, like with you, doing a top 10 action heroes. Like, oh, you should say Shrek for your number 1, but I can't say Shrek. I'm not saying Shrek. I'm just saying, so at work I can say I said Shrek.
That's true.
Now.
So where'd you go?
My actual number 2 is Wolverine from the X-Men franchise. So yes, I picked another superhero.
Another one that if I would have been doing superheroes, I would have for sure been in my list. And I took superheroes so much, that's why I left him off. But I understand why, because he's so good.
Like he's just like, it's not just he's like iconic as like a superhero character. He's iconic as an act. Like a lot of his, especially his solo movies, just action movies, and just seeing him go absolute berserk mode and seeing it from movie to movie, just getting it increasingly more violent ever so much until like from X-Men 1 to X-Men 2000 leading up until Logan, and just seeing him go absolute berserk on those soldiers. The other clone of himself, X-23 or 22 or whatever it was, like just like
pops so many
seeing
heads.
Him like going against Lady Deathstrike in X-Men 2, just like with 2 people have the healing factor, and the only real way of trying to kill each other is just to repeatedly stab and slash at each other. It just gets so violent and so enjoyable, and
without a doubt,
and Hugh Jackman is the Wolverine, like,
which is so strange because he's so tall.
We're talking a bit. He's too tall though, and not Canadian. But we're talking about how like Blade would be really, really difficult to recast. Wolverine is going to be even more so, in my opinion. And just as an action hero, for me, he is my number 2, and as number 1 went to Terminator, as we know.
I can't disagree with you. Like I said, if I would have had superheroes in here, no doubt Wolverine is on. I mean, one of my favorite comic book characters of all time, like Wolverine, Spider-Man. That was where I rode as a kid, and like you said, Hugh Jackman, even though he's too tall for the role. Like, I've heard lots of people go, oh, man, I can't wait to see Feige get his hands on a Wolverine. Like, they'll have him be short and stocky and more like what he's supposed to be. I'm like, I don't care. Like, Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. Like, he is Logan. He just encompasses everything about that character and just owns it so well that, like you said, the progression in the movies of what his character does and how the violence increases to where we finally got to see what Wolverine is supposed to look like in Logan. Like, I could watch that dude pop claws through people's heads all freaking day. And like,
there will just be times I just go like, I'm going to watch that last fight scene from Logan I just want to hear fucking Wolverine just screaming and yelling and just running and just stabbing, slicing.
And like, especially as like a comic fan, like seeing them tackle like the Old Man Logan type story, I was like, this is great. But then to give him that moment at the end where he fucking takes all that fucking juice and gets all jacked up back to young Wolverine, and you're just like, yes! Like, for every person known to mankind that wanted to see Hugh Jackman in those early X-Men movies rip people apart because that's what he's supposed to do. Like, they gave you that moment where it's like, we're going to young him up, make him look like young Wolverine, and just let him go to town. And it's short-lived, but it's so wonderful to watch. And choreography, like to figure out the stunt work and how much the claws have to play into it, even though they don't physically exist on screen. Like, he's just one of the best. And like, the thing I love too is you go to that X-Men movie and like, the technical claim to fame for Kevin Feige was I remember reading, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misquoting, but I could have sworn I read an article like maybe around the 10-year anniversary or something like that of X-Men. Like, Kevin Feige was now an established like person in the MCU. He was responsible for Wolverine's hair. Like, that was one of the things that he brought to that movie when he worked on X-Men.
Really?
Yeah, because Feige's been around for most of the Marvel movies, I believe. But one of the first like big ones that he worked on was that X-Men movie, I think in 2000. And I believe he was responsible for Logan's hair looking the way it did. I might be wrong. I might have misread that, but I'm pretty sure that that's true.
I didn't know he was involved with a lot of the earlier Marvel
He definitely
movies.
worked on those. Yeah, he was.
Wow!
He was like the comic book guy that was in the room that was like, oh, you might want to try to do this, or you might want to try to do this. So like, it wasn't shocking when he was given a little bit more power, and then when you saw what he was able to do from a producing standpoint, it was just like, oh, this guy, he cracked the code.
He's the reason we have the MCU.
I mean,
it wouldn't have happened.
No, definitely not. Like,
well, not well, probably.
No. Like, and it's one of those things. Like when you look at what he's done specifically with Spider-Man, like instantly you're like, this is what I've been. I don't care that we just rebooted this franchise for a third time in less than 2 years.
Yeah.
Like he knows the comics so well that he's able to incorporate the elements from stories or storylines so that a story seems like in line, like something like Civil War, totally different than the comic book story, but has all the essence of that comic book story. And it's what you want. Like, I want my adaptations to not be word for word what I've already read. Give me something new that represents what I've read, and that's what Feige's so good at.
That's exactly. Like, you can still read the comic books. You can see all those stories because other people like don't like it when the adaptations aren't really close. Like, they want to like almost exact adaptation, but do something different, experiment with things, see what happens.
Yeah, give me a new story that like I said, like holds the essence of what I knew from the comics. Like Civil War is for me like one of the most perfect like spots where they did that, where it was like it has everything going for it that the comic did, but it's completely different. It's its own story, which is cool. Like, I want my own stories. Now, if you were to say like, hey, we're gonna do the Dark Knight Returns, that motherfucker better be word for word exact to the comic book, because like, I think there are certain books or stories that are too iconic where it's like, well, if you're going to tackle that, you better be pretty damn close.
Yeah.
But if you're just like what Feige's done is like, hey, I created this world and now the world exists. So all these things are in place. I'm going to adapt stories. So it's like, oh yeah, we're doing this. Oh, we're doing this, but it looks different. And I just think he's so good at it. But I believe he's been around for almost all the Marvel films, even pre-MCU.
Like, he's good at like looking at taking like the more obscure kind of comics as well. Like, I don't think I wasn't familiar with the Guardians of the Galaxy at all until they made the movie.
Yeah.
My only knowledge of the Guardians of the Galaxy was from what was it? It was like the Avengers TV show. What was it called? It was like in the early 2010s. Earth's Mightiest Heroes or something like that, which is it's a really good show, and that was my introduction to the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then watching the film, it's like a different set of characters, isn't it? Like in that one, they had Adam Warlock, and I think other ones, because there's other characters that are involved.
These teams get shuffled all the time.
Yeah, got to keep it fresh. But I had no idea that Kevin Feige was involved so much with earlier ones.
I'm pretty sure that he's worked for Marvel like for a long time. So like even in those early days of the
so not necessarily one movie franchise, it's just Marvel as the film.
I believe that's how it started, and then he eventually got the MCU. I believe that's how it went. If I'm wrong, don't kill me. I'm sorry, but I'm 99.9% positive that's how it went down. Nevertheless, like easily one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. Like, the man's a genius. Like, to pull off what he's pulled off is just crazy. And it's sad to think that because of the coronavirus, we are going to live in a world where an entire year has passed with no Marvel movies.
Yeah. Well, it'll just make us anticipate them even more when they come out, I guess.
I can't wait for Black Widow. And that's the thing too. That's just like the first movie that we're gonna get. As pumped as I am to see ScarJo get her solo movie, it's a movie that takes place in the past. So it's like we don't know where we're going yet. Like,
it's good, but it really should have came out after Civil War. Like,
100%.
It really didn't need to. I really wished it came out earlier. It just
I think it's kind of Feige's apology to Scarlett. Say like she should have been the first female superhero movie. So now Kevin Feige's gonna give her the best female superhero movie. At least that's the way I feel, or I hope, maybe. But here we are going on tangents once again, which is so easy to do because you can get me with the comic books shit so fast. But yeah, I'm with you, dude. Wolverine, more than worthy of a top 3 spot, and it's certainly in number 2. For me, my number 2 goes to Mr. Ethan Hunt for Mission Impossible.
Right.
I think that the picking in this has as much to do with Tom Cruise as it does Ethan Hunt. But the fact that like these movies continue to just push the envelope of what a human being can do in a movie, like you literally sit on the edge of your seat for an entire movie because you're like, maybe this is the movie where Tom Cruise died, and just they're not telling anybody until after the movie's over because my dude wants to make an actual space movie in space. Like he's making Top Gun 2 because he wanted to fly a jet. Like the fact that he does all his stuff, and yes, he does want to make a space movie in space, which is I'm here for it. Like that's gonna,
of course he does.
If there's a movie that's gonna kill Tom Cruise, it's gonna be the space movie in space.
If I'm gonna die, it's gonna be in space. God damn it!
It's like you just see Tom Cruise spiraling out of the picture, like off into oblivion. You're like, I wonder if he's just floating in space now, and maybe that's how it all ended. But regardless of that, like what he does as a character and as an actor for action is just, it's bar none some of the craziest shit you'll ever see. Like it was Mission Impossible 4. I think it's the one where he climbs the building, where he goes into like that water thing.
Ghost Protocol?
Yeah, I think it's Ghost. Yeah, that's it. Ghost Protocol.
Yeah.
Like he, like in the movie, it's like, oh, he's got to be able to hold his breath for like 2.5 minutes or whatever. Obviously, when you're shooting it, you're not doing that. And Tom Cruise trained himself to hold his breath for 2.5 minutes just so he knew he could do it. Like,
question: do you like whenever I watch a movie and there's someone underwater? I like to try and hold my breath to see if I could actually hold my breath underwater. And it's like, no, I'm dead.
I've definitely done it. Ghost Protocol being one of those movies, because I knew like Tom Cruise had trained, even though like from the way the scene is shot, like he didn't have to hold his breath for the whole 2.5 minutes. But like, yeah, no, I've definitely been like, oh, we're underwater, we're holding our breath. Can I do it? No, definitely. I would be dead so fast. But like as a character, I love everything that Ethan Hunt stands for. And when it comes to a franchise, like the Mission Impossible movies, I think have just become some of the most iconic action movies. One, because Christopher McQuarrie, much like Kevin Feige with comic book movies, McQuarrie's cracked the code on these Mission Impossible movies, where it's like, oh, if we make the story cohesive, not like James Bond it, but like actually make all these kind of stories kind of run into each other. Oh, like you can elevate stuff. And now it's like every movie is just like, how do we top what we did before? And it's what Ethan Hunt does from a story perspective. Like he's given the impossible missions for a reason, and they find ways to make those missions feel impossible. And then when you just know all the stuff that Tom does in real life, like, I mean, Mission Impossible 2, he had to have his own insurance created because nobody would cover him. Because he needed to hang on the side of a mountain, free range, just no wires, no anything. Or almost get stabbed in the eye. Like that scene where he gets like almost stabbed, they attached a metal wire to the knife. So it's not a CGI knife in that shot, like that uncomfortably close shot of the knife hovering right above his eye.
Yeah.
That's a real knife. And they measured it so that when the guy went like this, it would stop no matter what he did right above Tom's eyeball. Like it's realism is what elevates those movies for me, and why he is number 2 on my list.
Which one was it? He jumps over a building, but then he doesn't quite make it, and he like fucks up his ankle, then he's like limping in the next shot, and that's just like
Fallout. It's like the most recent one.
Yeah, the most recent one.
And like the motherfucker finished the scene too. Like he pulled himself up on that wall and then limped past the camera before he fell down. Like, I think I broke my ankle, everybody. And then, I mean, also like, who doesn't love to watch Tom Cruise run? Which in Fallout, they make him run. He has, I was when I went to go see Fallout, I was like, this might be the ultimate chase scene movie. Like, he's got that ridiculous motorcycle chase where he's driving opposite of traffic that was really moving. He's got that car sequence in that movie too that's like short but wild. Then he has a foot race chase where he's running on tops of all those buildings. Then he's in a helicopter chase. I'm like, this whole movie is just nothing but chase after chase. But like, watching Tom Cruise fly a helicopter, like, I was watching like the behind the scenes stuff, and they were like, the move that he had to do when they go like up and down and around like one of those like waterfall mountain range areas, they're like, this is like one of the most difficult maneuvers. Like, there are actual pilots that are uncomfortable making this maneuver. I'm like, of course Tom Cruise would want to do it. You know, just the way
insane.
Like he did like hundreds of halo jumps, like had to have his own like mask created. But like I was saying earlier, like him and Keanu being the guy who prefers to be in the scene more often than not, like is pushing other actors to want to do that. Henry Cavill went like, hey, can I do this halo jump thing too? Like, if Tom's going to do it, I want to do it. And Tom's like, buddy, no, like you'll die. Like I've done hundreds of these. But it's that element of like realism and like the way he kind of elevates everything by making it real and doing it. I love the acting. I love the filmmaking behind these movies, and Ethan Hunt is just, he's one of the best. So that's
one of those few franchises that have like gotten progressively better. Like I've watched these out of whack. I've watched the first one, and then I wasn't really interested in seeing 2 and 3. But that's then fair. Years ago, my friend wanted to go see Ghost Protocol at the cinema, so I went with him. Didn't really. It was good enough on its own. I really fucking enjoyed it on its own. And then I remember hearing, Fallout, that's going to be rubbish. It's what, number 5? No, 6.
6. Yeah, 6.
6. And I'm like, this is going to be rubbish. And then I fucking loved it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was awesome.
Again, it's the Christopher McQuarrie of it all. Like the first Mission Impossible, I adore. I like elements about the second Mission Impossible. Like there are moments in that movie that are really good, but it doesn't look like the rest of the Mission Impossible movies, and it doesn't function the way the rest of them do as well. Third one I thought was more, I think that was the J.J. Abrams one, where Philip Seymour Hoffman is in there, so like that's great. And it like was more getting back on track. But then Christopher McQuarrie showed up and was like, I'm gonna just make all these movies and kind of keep the same story running through them, and we're just gonna elevate the action and the crazy shit that Tom will do movie by movie, and this will work. I swear it will work. And like you sit there, and I think the back half of the franchise is the best part of the franchise. I have no idea how McQuarrie and Cruise make 2 more Mission Impossible movies after doing everything that they did in Fallout. Like, I just don't know where you push the envelope to next.
I don't know. Space, obviously.
Maybe
that's the new frontier.
But I mean, like, I live to see what Tom Cruise will do next. Like, I love the fact that we're going to have a Top Gun 2 movie strictly because he wanted to fly a fighter jet in a movie.
I haven't seen Top Gun.
Paul, do yourself a favor, friend.
I used to be embarrassed whenever I said, like, there are so many iconic movies out there that I have not seen. But I'm just like, I don't feel like I'm an idiot for not seeing. I'm just like, I get to watch these movies for the first time as an adult and appreciate them.
I can't hate you. Like, I'm kind of jealous to some degree because, like, I wish like the current brain I have could remember watching some of these movies for the first time, because like, I mean, like we were saying before, there's nothing like the surprise of a movie when you don't see something coming. Like, I was trying to convince my parents to watch Parasite the other night, and I was sitting there going, I just wish I could I wish I could view that movie for the first time again, because you'll never be able to replicate that feeling.
Exactly.
You know, same thing with like Sixth Sense or any of those movies with those twists. Like, you never get to relive that moment. Like, you gotta relish it. And there's so many iconic movies I've seen there. It's like, I was too young to relish in what it was to see it for the first time.
I'm gonna make you jealous. So
do
it. Just real quietly. I haven't seen in any Indiana Jones movies before. For 50, so long. I think I was like 15 when I'm like, I really need to watch these movies. I really need to start watching these movies. Then next thing I know, I'm 30 years old going, I still need to watch Indiana Jones.
Oh, well, I tell you, I'm jealous at the fact that like you will get to experience those for the first time, hopefully in the not too future.
I will,
because the first soon. 3 are fantastic.
Yeah. I know 4 isn't considered a very good one.
4, I liked 4. I think more than the majority of people. My problem with 4, I thought did a bunch of things okay. It's just the end of the movie, like the direction they take it is so sci-fi and out of the realm of realism, where it's like all of these crazy things that Indy chases, for artifacts, they're at least somewhat rooted in fact or some sort of history. And what they do in the 4th one, no, that just doesn't
fit.
And you get to the end, and you're just like, what? When did the Indiana Jones movie stop? And when did we start doing whatever this garbage? Although I am excited that there will be another Indiana Jones, hopefully, to leave us with a better taste in it. Like, it's every once in a while when you see like a franchise do a movie like after, like years after, and it's like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. Like, I appreciate when they try to come back a second time, because it's like, well, I hope you learned your mistakes from the first one, so now you're going to leave us feeling better about like making an Indiana Jones movie that feels like an Indiana Jones movie. But
yeah, when's the next one supposed to come out?
I think they were supposed to start. I want to say they were supposed to start potentially shooting this year. I know, like a couple months ago, I feel like I saw an article where they were talking like the script was done, and like the script, like Harrison was really on board with the script and stuff. So I hope.
Oh, he's on board. So
he's on board.
So he likes being Indiana Jones, because I know he fucking hates Star Wars.
I know, which is crazy. but he loved it enough to make an appearance at the very end. When he showed up at the end of the last one, I was
really surprised by that.
I didn't expect it to happen, because I knew how hard it was to get him to sign on to do Force Awakens. Like, spoilers.
And he probably only said it because he's like, all right, you have to fucking kill me, though.
Yeah, like, spoilers, we kill Han Solo. And, like, the feeling I had coming out of the movie was, like, that was definitely because Harrison was like, I don't want to be in any of the movies that come after this. Like, just off me. But no, Indy is one of the franchise. Like, that's his franchise. Like, he adores.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, he's here for that. So knowing that about him, and knowing, like, all right, if we're going to do it one more time, like, this is probably the last time I can make an Indiana Jones movie. I'm assuming that it will be on point, but who knows? But the first 3, fantastic stuff. I mean, like I said, it killed me not to have him not on my top 10.
Oh, yeah. But I'll watch it soon.
All right.
Bear in mind, I've been saying that for 15 years now.
So I'm going to check in on you, Paul. Every once in a while, I'm going to just like send you a little note. Be like, Indiana Jones? Question mark.
And then like 15 years from now, I'll be 45. I'll just be like, Corey, I watched it. It's
amazing. Oh, man. I don't know of a better way to end things than on a note like that. Oh, man, Paul, this has been an absolute pleasure.
I've had a fantastic time.
It was so much fun. Like I said, like, I've really just appreciated and respect everything that you're doing over on your YouTube channel. I love watching when you do stuff, and when you pop things in that I haven't done, I'm like, ooh, I should go watch that movie and stuff. And talking to you in like real life like this has just been awesome. So thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate you doing it.
Thanks for having me.
And love that you were down to do the action top 10 list. I thought it was something that we could do. We'll definitely get 2 episodes out of this bad boy. So we'll get 2 weeks.
Out of curiosity, how long I don't even know how long we've been recording for.
So we've been talking for over 3 hours. The good portion of the first hour was not being recorded.
Yeah.
That's how we got to where we are now, but certainly more than enough material to cover 2 weeks of the Greek Geek on Cinema Sit Down, which is exciting for me. Dude, like I said, thank you so much for coming on. Tell everybody where to find all your stuff.
Find my stuff on YouTube. Just type in The Greek Geek. I think it comes up. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook too. look up the Greek Geek if you're interested.
I will also have links for all of these things down below in the description.
Oh,
so it's easy for you guys to find Paul and everything that he's doing. Like I said, definitely go check him out. Show him some cinema sit-down love. We've loved having you on. This was so much fun. Definitely got to do this again, buddy.
Definitely.
And we'll have to find some. Maybe when movies come back, we'll have to like pinpoint some movies where it's like, let's go see this, and then we'll sit down and talk. But thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. It was one of those ideas I had. I was like, I think this will work really well, and I think it's worked wonderfully. I hope you all agree with what we've been doing and enjoying our time over these last couple hours together. So Paul, thank you so much. As always, we'll wrap things up. If you've enjoyed our conversation, please show us some love. Like I said, go check out Paul over at his stuff with the Greek Geek. Obviously, if you love stuff here going out with the Cinema Sit Down, we appreciate your support. Show us some love with some thumbs ups. If you haven't subscribed yet to either of our channels, jump over. If you're here, it's somewhere over there. You can jump over, hit the subscribe button for me. Jump over to the Greek Geek, hit the subscribe button for Paul. If you really like us, you want those alerts, hit those little bells, and you'll get alerts sent to all your devices that you watch YouTube on. That's it, man. So for the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down, over here, man, this has been my buddy Paul, the Greek Geek. Thank you for coming on, bud. So great to have you. And as always, for the Seaman Cinema Sit Down, I am the Seaman. Paul, we're going to sign off together. We're signing off. We're going to do the peace. Ready?
Okay.
Signing off.
Right.
Peace. There it is.
Well, as I live and breathe, you still here? Check out a video like this one or this one. And hit the subscribe button so you can get alerts and check out everything the Seaman's got at the Cinema Sit Down.